From Las Vegas, Nevada, the entertainment capital of the world, I'm David Garik, and this is the Vegas Faces Podcast, where we talk with Las Vegas locals about what it's really like to live in the City of Lights. Whether you're living in Vegas, moving to Vegas, or just visiting Vegas and looking for new adventures, together let's discover the hidden gems that make Sin City the most visited place on earth. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Vegas Faces, where we talk to the people of Las Vegas about what it's really like to live in the entertainment capital of the world. I'm David Garik, and I'm honored to introduce our amazing guest today. Garik Frainer is a husband, a father, and the owner and chief instructor at Civil Defense Solutions, a personal home defense firearms training company right here in Las Vegas. Civil Defense Solutions offers the education and the training for us to be more aware and better prepared for the dangers we face and the unfortunate uncertainty in our world today. Garik and I talk about the legal process of becoming a gun owner here in the state of Nevada, how to educate yourself as a responsible firearms owner, and so much more. So get ready, strap in, and enjoy this fantastic and eye-opening episode. I wanted to bring you here to just kind of get into the basics. Anyone who is thinking about owning a gun, I feel like in everyone's mind, it's like everyone thinks they can just be like James Bond and just like, oh, I'm going to buy a gun, I'm going to protect my family.
Yeah, 100%. No, you're absolutely correct. And again, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Being a huge proponent of the Second Amendment, absolutely, I believe that everybody should exercise that right to own, to be able to purchase, to own, possess a firearm, and carry a firearm. But there is a huge level of responsibility that comes along with that. It is a tool. It's a lethal tool. In the right hands, it's a defensive weapon. In the wrong hands, it could be an offensive weapon used to impose your will on people, and that's never a good thing. But there is a level of training that's required in order to be competent with a firearm, and just like any other tool that you might utilize. In order to do so safely, you need to invest in some training. There's a lot of legal aspects to owning a firearm, to using a firearm. There's legal use of force laws that need to be understood so that you don't find yourself in a bad situation legally, thinking that you're in the right defending yourself. So there's a lot more to it than simply going to the store, purchasing a gun, and having a gun, and just thinking you're good to go just off of that. So 100%, we want to educate people as much as possible, not only to their rights, but to the laws. And then, of course, to just the basic handling and operation of a firearm, because it is an inanimate object. It's not going to go do bad things on its own. But accidents do happen, and the likelihood that those accidents happen increase significantly when we fail to train ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, do you have people that come to your class that are already experienced, or is it people that just literally from ground zero, knowing nothing, and that's where you start them at, or different tiers, different courses for different experience levels?
So get a mix of everything. The most popular course is our CCW course. It literally sells itself. We just have to put our name in front of people. They see CCW and they come find us.
And not to be a rookie or anything, but what does CCW stand for?
So CCW is your concealed carry weapons permit.
Okay, I knew that, but just for
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's the one that everybody wants, because that's the thing that people believe. Once they have that, they can carry a gun, and they're good to go. They're protected. So that one literally sells itself.
But that's just the beginning, right? Like that's like
absolutely.
You're not technically good to go. Like that gets you in the door, but then from there is what, further practice, I would imagine.
Should be
to the range. Okay.
That should be the natural progression. You should seek out additional training so that yes, you can carry, but you can carry with confidence and competency, knowing that you know how to handle that firearm. And unfortunately, we get a lot of people that come through, get their CCW permit, and they don't get any additional training after that.
They think, oh, I'm good. I did the 8-hour course. It's enough.
Yeah, they might not even make it to the range after that. It's just, gun goes in a closet, and that's where it stays until, in their mind, until something happens and they need it, and then they're just going to go into John Wick mode.
Yeah.
But that's just, it's just not reality. So
Yeah. Now, real quick, CCW, concealed carry, meaning what? Like underneath your jacket, in a pocket? Does it mean in a suitcase, in a bag, in a purse? Like, what constitutes concealed?
So concealed, per Nevada revised statutes, is just there's no part of the firearm that's exposed. So whether it be concealed in a garment, under a garment, whether it be concealed in a purse or a bag, off body, there's a bunch of different options for how you can conceal carry a firearm. But essentially, as long as it's hidden from sight, from plain sight, then it's considered concealed.
And we're talking a loaded weapon, or what if you just went to the store to buy the gun and now you have the gun in a casing in the trunk of your car? Is that concealed? And if you don't have the concealed permit yet, you're in trouble, type of thing?
No. So in Nevada, your vehicle is actually considered an extension of your home. So you can conceal a firearm in your vehicle anywhere you'd like, whether you have a permit or not. Now, the moment you leave that vehicle, it needs to be either in a case where you're carrying that's visible, or it needs to be carried in like an open carry manner where it's in a holster on your hip but exposed.
Okay.
It needs to be carried in that manner unless you have that permit. But if you're in your vehicle, then it can be anywhere you'd like in your vehicle, because again, your vehicle is considered an extension of your home.
Okay. So what's like the natural progression for someone who has zero knowledge, has never owned a gun? Do you take the CCW class first and then buy the gun, or do you buy the gun, take the class? What is like the usual route for someone like that?
It really just depends. Everybody's journey is different. I had a good friend of ours, him and his wife. They were they're not anti-gun. They've just never been into guns. Never felt the need to have one. But they live in a nice gated community, Southern Highlands, and they had just one afternoon there was a crazed individual who was going door to door, kind of harassing people. So he goes to this one particular house, and there's a pregnant woman inside. She panics and she calls her husband. Her husband's just a few minutes away, so he speeds home, confronts the individual. That individual stabs that woman's husband. I think it was like 9 or 10 times. And that was just a street over from where they lived. So for them, that was enough to, they felt the need that
100%.
they needed to arm themselves. So they reached out to me, and mind you, they have zero experience at all.
Yeah.
So I had them come over. We went over some basic safety things, how to store the gun properly, things like that, because they have children in the home. And then I took them to the gun store, and we shopped around, found a firearm that was comfortable for them, that they felt like they could handle, and so we started that whole process from there. I gave them some private instruction, and they're scheduled to come to my CCW class in January. So that was kind of their route. Some people have experience already, but they've never had a concealed carry permit. So you get people that are informed and experienced with firearms, but they're just coming to get their permit to be able to conceal carry. So really everybody's journey is different, and we're just there to try and accommodate everybody and get them as informed and as well trained as possible.
Now, can you have a gun without the concealed carry permit? Like maybe you don't want to carry it out in public. Maybe you just want to keep it in your closet.
Yeah.
For a worst case scenario type of thing.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Can you keep it in your car, in your glove box kind of thing? Or do you have to have the CCW to keep it in your car? I know you said it was an extension of your home, but as long as it's in the car and not going with you when you leave the car?
Correct. The only thing is that gray area where you're transporting the firearm from your vehicle to your home, and just making sure that you're doing that within the parameters of the law, and not concealing it in any manner, because we don't recommend that you actually leave firearms in your vehicle, for extended periods of time. If you have to go somewhere and you can't take your gun with you, then leaving your firearm in the car, of course, is a thing. And even in that case, though, there's lock boxes and there's things that you should definitely consider doing so that somebody just can't simply break into your car and come into possession of that firearm.
Okay. Oh man, lots to think about. But this is good.
A little
This is really good. Are there other courses besides the CCW course, or is the CCW course like the baseline, like start there for someone who's just starting out? Are there? Tell me about more of the other kinds of courses that
For sure.
you guys do.
So we've kind of developed a pipeline, so to say. It's essentially we want people to come in and take the CCW course and get the permit. That gives them the ability to conceal carry. And then we would like them to follow up with a new course that we developed, the Responsibly Armed Citizens course. And this, to us, and when I say us, I have a team of instructors that I've partnered with that help me facilitate this course. But it essentially is the minimum standard that we believe every firearm owner should have prior to carrying a firearm out in public. And in that course, we cover, the first thing we go through is emergency medical treatment. So we'll go into the most common injuries sustained during a violent encounter and how an individual can treat them, both on how to treat others as well as how to treat themselves. And so we're mostly bleeding control and tourniquet application, things like that. And we don't go too in depth because we don't want to overwhelm people or overload them with information, but just some basics on things that they can do to help save lives.
How common is it for the gun to accidentally go off and they shoot themselves? Like, is that a common thing, or is that an irrational fear?
It's definitely not an irrational fear. It's not all that common, but it happens enough that, you really need to be cognizant of what you're doing with that firearm to avoid having that accidental or negligent discharge.
Like, do guns just go off like that, or?
No, sir. Contrary to some people's narrative, guns do not go off by themselves.
I picture like you drop it and bam, it just
No.
goes, type
Now,
of thing.
there have been particular models of firearms that have gotten a lot of scrutiny in the past because they do have vulnerabilities like that, where if they're dropped, they can discharge. But it's really rare, far and few in between, and when they arise, the manufacturers generally address those issues immediately.
So, like, in a case where it does go off in someone's jacket pocket, what was the cause of that usually?
Usually it's just honestly negligence. If your firearm's properly holstered, the trigger is going to be covered in such a manner that even if you were to grab that gun in an improper manner, it's not going to discharge. You're not going to be able to physically pull the trigger because it's covered in the holster. So, and that goes back to just having the proper equipment for your firearm. That's the purpose of a holster, is to keep that trigger protected so that you don't have those accidental incidences.
Do all guns have a safety button, or is that like a
Nope.
Hollywood thing? Like left the safety off or forgot to put the safety on or something?
No, that's so there's an endless variety of
So many
types of
different kinds.
firearms.
Yeah, okay.
Some come with safeties, some don't have safeties, and really it just boils down to personal preference and what people are comfortable with.
Do you have any recommendations on like top brands of guns that you would recommend for someone who's starting out? Like, I would imagine someone who has never had a gun before probably shouldn't be getting like a giant machine gun, or maybe start with a little baby handgun or something, I would guess.
So my biggest thing with the firearms and when somebody's choosing a firearm is what they're comfortable with. Okay. So like, I'm a huge advocate of taking those individuals to a gun store or even to a range. Better yet, the combination of the two. There's several gun stores in town that have in-house ranges. Even better, because not only can you get your hands on the gun and make sure it's a good fit for your hands, that you can manipulate all the controls properly, but then you can take it to the range and test fire it as well, and just make sure you're comfortable with everything about it, because it's one of the biggest things. If you're not comfortable with it, you're going to have this underlying anxiety, and it's going to affect you. So I always advocate for going to the store, going to the range, getting your hands on the gun, and finding what's most comfortable for you.
Are there any ranges you can recommend here in Vegas?
Yeah, absolutely. Discount Firearms on Highland. They have a great selection, great inventory, great staff, and they have an in-house range. And then Precision Armory, which is located on, I want to say, Blue Diamond and Decatur. Same thing. Great store, great staff, and they also have an in-house range.
And they let you, for a fee, right, go in there, shoot, and then see what you like kind
Correct.
of thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a huge selection of weapons that you can rent. And so that way you can, get your hands on them and see what they feel like and make sure it's a good fit for you.
Is ammunition still an issue? I remember during COVID, the price for bullets went like skyrocket. Like, is that still a thing now, or did that kind of go down and level off?
It is now, and that was just a recent development. So, ammo prices and supplies had kind of normalized. And then this whole thing with Israel and Hamas
Yeah.
happened, and that kind of sparked fear, and then everybody started panic buying again. So prices are through the roof
Yeah.
again. There's
Wow.
scarcity, but it comes in cycles. So I always advise people, if they're going to stock up on ammunition, do it on a consistent basis when prices are normal, so that when things like this happen, you don't have to run out and join in on the panic buying and spend more money than you need to.
Okay. For a beginner getting a handgun, what brands do you personally like?
Me personally, I'm a 6 Hour guy. I love 6 Hour guns. They're just great firearms, well built. They're a little bit on the higher end as far as price goes. So a lot of people that are looking for their first firearms to purchase, I'll recommend Glock to them. Glock is a very popular, very common brand. Great firearms. They function very well, never any issues. Relatively decent price points. So you can't really go wrong if you go with the Glock. And then, once you've kind of figured out what you like and don't like, you can always upgrade and modify from there. But
And when you say decent price point, what is one expected to spend?
again, depending on what you're looking for, but on average, $400 to $600 will get you a good, reliable firearm. And then, on the higher end of things, they can go anywhere, $8,000-$9,000 up to $1,500. So
Yeah, wow.
yeah.
And just like the concealed carry class, I'm sure there's background checks, and is it multiple days? Is it weeks? How long does it take to go through all the paperwork before you can actually have the firearm?
So generally, it's 3 days. So you go in, you purchase, you do your paperwork. Typically, it's 3 days. Sometimes quicker, sometimes longer. During COVID, when everything was so backed up, the wait times were a week or greater in some cases. But typically 3 days max, sometimes quicker than that. And if you have your CCW permit, which is another reason a lot of people come through the classes, you don't have to go through the background check process.
Okay.
So you can literally select your firearm, pay for your firearm, and leave with it that same day.
Okay. Thanks for letting me ask you all these gun questions. I want to
absolutely.
get into how did you even get into guns? What is your history of firearms? Were you in the military? You told me you're from Las Vegas, born
Correct.
and raised, which
Yeah.
is very rare. In fact, the guy, our producer,
Yeah.
shout out, she
yeah.
is too. But it's hard to find people that born and raised here in Las Vegas. So
Yeah.
I'd be interested in just how your background and how your life has led you to what you do now.
Yeah, definitely. So I've always been around guns, not necessarily handguns, but my dad, my family, they were all hunters, outdoorsy types. So firearms were just a normal thing. I was taught how to be responsible with them, and all of that. But my dad never had any firearms for defensive purposes. They were all for outdoor applications. Sporting, hunting, things of that nature. Me personally, I grew up in, I guess what they would consider inner city Las Vegas, old North Las Vegas. So there was a lot of gang activity growing up and things like that. So I just was always in the mindset of looking out for myself and having the mindset of being able to protect myself. And as I got older, that just led to an interest in firearms, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I bought my first gun as soon as I was legally able to at age 21. But like a lot of people that I try and get in touch with these days, I didn't pursue the training. I just carried, and I thought that, I was good to go.
It's like people don't realize it's a journey. It's not just.
It really is.
It's not just take the class, check mark, you're good. Like
Yeah.
it's like swinging golf clubs. Like you can always get better at aiming and how to use it and safety aspects of it, how to take it apart, how to clean it. Like there's so much that goes into it.
100%.
I only know a little bit about it because I have friends that used to be in the military who have told me about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, to an outsider though, I still know little to nothing.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, but so I ended up taking my CCW class, got my CCW, and then the only reason I took any additional training was because my CCW instructor offered a discounted course that he was teaching, a follow-up course to the CCW. I took that course, and that was an eye-opener for me because I realized, like, oh, there really is more to this than, just pointing and shooting. There's skill, there's tactic, there's technique, and so that was my introduction to formal training, and I was kind of hooked from there. Once I took that course, I took other courses and other courses and other courses, and kind of became addicted to the training aspect of it.
Yeah.
So several years later, this was right around COVID, I just had enough people coming to me asking for help, for guidance, for instruction. Why not turn it into a business? The economy was doing weird things at that time. The future was really uncertain for a lot of people, so I figured it'd be a good time to establish something of my own and kind of take the entrepreneurial approach, and that's what we did. Opened up shop, and 3 years later, still grinding.
And where are you guys located? What part of town?
So my business is actually based out of my home.
No kidding.
Because all of my courses take place at ranges.
Okay.
So I have access to classrooms. I have access to ranges. My office is home-based. For the time being, we're actually working on some commercial property, me and some of my partners. So we'll actually have a physical space soon. But yeah, right now, for the past 3 years, everything's just been ran out of my home, and then I utilize the classrooms and the ranges.
Wow. What are your thoughts, being that we're in Las Vegas? Las Vegas is like the city of gimmicks. Everything is all part of the show, all part of the entertainment.
Yeah.
Even the gun ranges, to where I've seen one where you can like shoot a gun from a helicopter.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
or like there's another one where if you pay like, I don't know, $5,000 or $10,000, however much it costs, you can literally blow up a car.
Yeah.
Like you can point a bazooka and like shoot a car.
Yeah.
So like, what are your thoughts on? Because it seems like there's like an entertainment aspect to it as well. I would assume for like the very experienced people that maybe just want something out of the box, something that you don't get anywhere else. But as like a serious, responsible gun enthusiast, what are your thoughts on places like that?
I mean, they cater to a certain type of people, like you said. It's not for me, but this is Vegas, so you've got to be able to offer people the excitement, the over the top, that's the extravagance, and that's Vegas. So
yeah, all about the fanfare and just the next big thing kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's really, that appeals to more so to the tourists than anything. They all come here and they want to have that experience, and they provide that for them. Personally, I don't see the value in it outside of entertainment, but
like you're more into like educating and
practical application.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, like the story you told about the couple and the neighbor who was stabbed, unfortunately, like statistically, like is this something that happens way more than we think it happens?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn it. Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Because I like to think like, oh, maybe if I was to become a gun owner, it would be, out of self-defense. But then it's like, how likely do these worst-case scenarios really happen to where how needed is this self-defense education? Am I just living paranoid, or like you said, it happens and we just don't really pay attention to it?
Yeah. I mean, you think you live in paranoid until something happens to you and you're unprepared. I mean, there was that story that just happened last week in California where the tech entrepreneur, as he was coming home to his house, was confronted by two armed assailants. And luckily, he had a concealed weapon, probably one of the few in the state of California. But he had a concealed weapon on him, and he was able to exchange fire with these two individuals and drive them off of his property.
Yeah, that's some John Wick type stuff right there.
Yeah, it really was.
One
because,
versus two, and both of them are arms?
Well, it gets better. He's got his keys to his house in one hand. He's trying to open the front door, and he's got a cup of coffee in the other. And his initial response when the first guy confronted him and he sees the firearm was to throw his cup of coffee in the guy's face, which bought him the time to draw his weapon.
Yeah, that's some John Wick shit right there.
Him. Yeah. But that's the value of training.
Wow.
You know, because that response was just automatic for him.
So it's like we all like to think that that'll never happen to us, but in the very small percentage, like we don't even want it to be a small percentage. We want it to never happen.
We want it to never happen.
So if it is to happen, at least. But also, are there times where people think they can save the day, and then that goes horribly wrong?
Oh, for sure, for sure. You know, there's people that have the right intentions, have good intentions, and you know, they want to be a good Samaritan, but they get involved into a situation that A, either they didn't understand, or B, that they're ill-trained or prepared for, and it goes sideways. So, you know, one of the biggest things that we teach in our course is that if you come upon a situation that's active and you didn't see how it began, you didn't see the onset of the situation, the best thing you do is call 911 and just be a good witness. Because if you try and intervene, you know, we might assume that the person that's getting the best of the other maybe is the attacker. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, maybe the attacker got the tables turned on him, and the person that's dishing out the beating is the person that was initially attacked, and you would engage that person, and now you've just shot and possibly killed an innocent person that was defending themselves. So again,
and just because you're a concealed carry doesn't mean you could just like pull a gun on someone out of self-defense. Like that's a crime in itself, right? Just to brandish, right?
It depends on the circumstances, because you do have, you are justified or authorized to use lethal force in the defense of others as well. So if you're in immediate fear of great grave or bodily harm to yourself, you're justified in using lethal defense or lethal force in defense of yourself. And likewise, if you encounter somebody else who is in you know, great grave, at risk of great grave bodily harm, then you can come to their defense as well. But you just have to be very clear of the circumstances.
Yeah, because sometimes you might have escalated a situation that didn't even need to go there.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, and what's fascinating about living here in Vegas, here in the state of Nevada, we are an open carry state.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's common to just see people at the grocery with, like, a gun on their hip.
Unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, I want to get into that. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, why, I guess, you know, if you make it legal, people are going to do it. Yeah. But what are the pros and cons of that? Like, should that be a thing? And what makes it a good idea versus a bad idea?
So I'm somewhat of a constitutionalist. So I do believe that it should be a thing. I just don't think it should be a thing that people actually do. Not serious people. Mm-hmm. The whole reason that I conceal carry my firearm is to have the advantage and to have, you know, the element of surprise. If I have a firearm on my hip, I'm going to be a target. So if a violent attacker, you know, robs an establishment that I happen to be in and sees me with the gun, there's a good chance that I get taken out first.
Now, let me pause you real quick. Are you a target, or are you also maybe a deterrent to someone who sees that? Like, are you like a walking security guard in a sense that, like, oh, like that could be trouble if I tried to start trouble here, maybe get away from that guy?
It's probably a
50-50?
It's probably a 50-50, but in my mind,
But if they know what they're doing and then they see you, then you're probably a target.
There's that. And if I'm concealed carrying and they don't know that I have that firearm on me, again, I have the element of surprise. I have a tactical advantage in that situation.
Yeah.
And I would always prefer to operate from a position of advantage. So
a lot to think about. To
it
where, it kind of reminds me of like martial arts, where it's like you learn all this stuff so that you never have to use it.
Yeah, 100%.
Probably the same thing with being a gun owner, like to like get all the education, know everything, but then also hope that you never ever have to be in that situation.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things that we touch on before we even get to guns in that responsibly armed citizens course that I mentioned earlier is we talk about situational awareness. Teaching people, encouraging people to be mindful of their environments, to be aware, to be alert, to keep their faces out of their cell phones when they're in public. And the reason for that is again, it's not to be paranoid, but it's to identify potential threats before they become problems that we can't avoid. Mm-hmm. It's to buy us time to make decisions and act and respond intelligently to potential threats. So we talk about situational awareness, and then we go into de-escalation. So if for whatever reason we didn't identify a situation and it's upon us, how can we de-escalate the situation? And we'll go through some verbal judo, things that we can do to, calm that situation down. Maybe if we're getting robbed, we acquiesce that person, we give them what they're asking for, because possessions are just possessions and they can be replaced. Mm-hmm. Everything that we do is geared towards avoiding a violent encounter, by all means. So, and that's almost more critical than having the firearm skills, because skills aren't needed if you can avoid the situation altogether. And we don't spend enough effort or energy in learning how to do that. It requires managing ego and letting go of pride, because a lot of situations escalate because our ego is provoked. So, we teach a lot of that, and the big thing is just to avoid a violent encounter altogether, because you win 100% of the fights you never get into, and so we kind of operate from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's for someone like me that's never even, I've been to a range a couple times with friends, shot their guns, whatever, but to seriously consider, and also I have 2 kids, so I have to be mindful of that. Mm-hmm. Which you told me you have 5 kids?
Correct.
Kudos to you, man. I'm like, I'm exhausted just hearing that. But yeah, I mean, how do you go about the protection of their well-being to make sure? I mean, these little kids get into everything, every drawer, every cabinet, everything. Yeah. So like, what does your setup look like, or what do you recommend for parents who are thinking of going this route in a safe and responsible way?
Yeah. So for me personally, my gun goes everywhere that I go. And like I mentioned earlier, if there's a place that I can't go with my gun legally, a school, a federal building, then I have a secure lockbox, digital lockbox in my car that's wrapped around the frame of my vehicle with a steel cable, and it's secured in there. Other than that, it stays on my person at all times. Once I get home,
so like right now you're sitting down, where like it's in your belt, like it's in your
yeah,
and that's comfortable.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me at all. This is
get a shot of that. That was cool.
This is considered. This is what we call inside the waistband appendix carry.
Okay. What about like ankle and?
That's a thing, and it serves a purpose, but
okay. TV?
Usually as a backup weapon, and yeah, usually for people in certain occupations.
Okay.
That would really be a prevalent thing.
But this would be the most common, and it's not uncomfortable when you're sitting down and driving or anything like that.
Now, extended road trips or something like that, I might just put it in the lockbox for the time being, because it can get uncomfortable after several hours. But for me, it's just something I'm used to. It feels weird to not have it on me.
This is gonna be a silly question, but like Hollywood or real life, is it really a thing to sleep with a gun under your pillow, or is that just just in the movies?
Definitely in the movies, and maybe if you're a bachelor and you don't have kids or anything like that to consider, but for me, no. Again, safety first, man.
Yeah.
Safety first, and that, to me, that's just not a safe practice.
Yeah. Now, another question is that when you store it carefully out of the reach of children and in a safe, in an actual safe, and then the worst event does happen, a home invasion or something in the middle of the night, I've heard people argue like, oh, you wouldn't even have time to go to the case and type in the code and get the thing out and then also save the day too. Like, so what are your thoughts on storing it in a way that no one can access it, no one, like kids or anyone,
Yep.
but then also getting to it quick enough to where if you needed to, you could.
Yeah. So first off, this goes to mindset and to lifestyle. So for me in my home, I have multiple layers of defense. So the whole argument of I didn't have time, I eliminate that. So you have layers of defense to your home. You have early indicators, you have alarm systems, you have sensors, you have Ring doorbell cameras, you have all of those things to alert you and to notify you that something might not be right. And so those layers of defense for me are important for that very reason. Now, even when my firearms are stored and secured, they're secured in products that allow me to keep that firearm safe and secure, but also grant me quick access to it when needed. So biometric thumb readers that only I can access. And, once I'm alerted to a possible threat, I can access my firearm in no time. And utilizing those early alert sensors that I have around the home, it's not an issue. And for me, and some people will say again that this is excessive, but these are things that my family and I will drill, because it's not natural probably to wake up in the middle of the night and just
Sure.
get right into go mode. But, it's something that my family and I have ran through. So
Yeah, everyone thinks that, oh, I know what to do. Like they want to play Monday morning quarterback with a situation, but when it's actually heightened, emotions are heightened
Yeah.
and adrenaline's going,
Yep.
it's a whole different ballgame.
100%.
What about, I'm assuming you're married.
Yes.
Does your wife also know how to shoot guns? And is that a good idea for like, I guess it depends on comfort level for her too.
Yeah.
Love my wife, a little bit of a klutz at times. I'm scared for her to hold a pot of hot water, let alone love you, bae, but let alone a firearm. So I'm curious to know, or maybe perhaps your wife already had that background knowledge and experience too before you guys met, or is that something that you taught her?
That is something that I've taught her. She's okay with firearms. She has no problem with them. She knows how to use them. She's just not as comfortable and into them as I am. And so, like you said, it's a comfort thing. If she's not comfortable with it or she doesn't have the desire, then it makes no sense to try and push that on her, because then it just becomes a liability. It can become an issue. She does know how to operate one, and in a worst case scenario, if something happened to me or one of the children, she would 100% be able to pick it up and utilize it effectively. But she's not as crazy about the training and all of that as I am.
Yeah. And what is a good age to start teaching your kids? Like how old were you when you were first came into contact with firearms in a safe manner? Like what is a responsible age to educate your kids on it?
For me, it was as soon as they could talk and I could communicate with them. And that wasn't
to where they were holding it?
a live firearm. No.
Okay.
But I have training guns.
Okay.
I have an abundance of training guns because of the courses that I teach. So we're talking about just molded pieces of plastic in the shape of a firearm.
Okay.
This is a gun. This is what it does. This is what it can do. This is how we handle it. So those conversations begin as soon as they're old enough to understand them. And the reason being is I want to remove the curiosity from them about what these things are, because that's really when bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are curious. Oh, Dad has this thing, on his closet shelf that
they want what they can't have.
We just know we're not supposed to touch it, so let's go touch it.
Yeah, it's like alcohol too. Like, oh, what's in that cabinet over there? Like, but if you kind of educate them at a young age, I'm not saying get drunk with your kids when they're 7, but
expose them to
yeah.
things to remove the curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big proponent of that, and I think my daughter was 5 the first time I took her out to the desert and let her shoot a firearm.
No kidding, wow.
And it's nothing that I push on them, but I want them to have that familiarity. Yes, sir.
Like,
Thank
what
you.
if you were to go to a range, what would be the minimum age for an adolescent? Is there one?
No, the range is usually as long as they're accompanied by an adult.
Okay.
I don't know that I've seen an age minimum.
But if they went by themselves, they'd have to be 18?
You have to be 18, yeah.
Okay, but with a parent, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that. Oh man, the way my kids are right now, it scares me for them to hold.
Yeah.
And I mean, it scares me too. But I think also, it's a comfort thing, which is probably why you have to continue to train and take it to the range and things like that, because it's like you get more comfortable with this device that's lethal.
Yeah.
And how to get over that fear is to just constantly expose yourself to it in a
Exactly.
safe, responsible way. So,
Exactly.
very fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to turn the conversation, being that this is a Vegas podcast.
Right.
I'm interested from someone who grew up in Vegas. You've seen this city change like numerous times.
Yeah.
To where like what do you think is your favorite part about the expansion of Vegas? People like me who just moved here 5 years ago or sooner.
Yeah.
Versus from what you've seen the city turn into. Is it a positive in your eyes? Is it a negative? How do you feel?
Right now, honestly,
Bummed out that the traffic's getting a little bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny. I was listening to the podcast you had on with, I can't remember the gentleman's name. He owns the t-shirt printing company, the jiu-jitsu guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So he was talking about the traffic. I've never lived anywhere other than Vegas. So to me, the traffic is absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
somebody coming from a larger metropolitan area, it's probably like, this is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly,
It's all relative.
I personally am not a fan of the growth in the past few years. I feel like it's been excessive. There's always been growth, and that's been a good thing. People come from other places. You get diversity, you get variety, economic stimulation.
It's been in like hyperdrive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of that because of COVID, probably because of all the shutdowns.
Yeah.
They probably are feeling like they have to play catch up.
Yeah.
To where Formula One, Sphere, like just everything's
going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's my biggest complaint though, honestly, is what it's done to the housing market, because really they've priced locals out of the market.
Yeah.
People that live here, that work here, can no longer afford. I think I seen a statistic. It was like 120,000 annually is now the minimum income required to be able to afford a mortgage.
It got so crazy so fast, and if you didn't get in at the right time, you missed out, and now you're just on the waiting list.
Yeah.
It feels like. Yeah. 100%.
And so, I mean, that's concerning, because a lot of people, if you're not locked into a home with a good mortgage rate, then you're in a tough spot.
Yeah. I mean, I work in real estate, so it totally changed everything to where once houses became investments. And I mean, that's like nothing new, but like with the rise of Airbnb and things like that, corporations buying houses, it just became, like you said, people got priced out.
Yeah.
They waited too long. They thought, I can just wait a little bit longer, save up a little bit more, and then bam, the rates shot up.
Yeah.
And then it just totally, now people are just sitting around waiting, are these rates going to go down, which will cause a whole nother crazy wave of issues if they were to go down drastically in a short period of time.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that the housing prices will go up even more because all the people sitting around waiting are now like, the rates are down, let's go out and buy.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to have a frenzy again back in like we saw in 2020 and 2021. So
100%.
I can see that, and just people are constantly flocking here by the hundreds.
Yeah. Yeah. And along with that, unfortunately, comes increased crime rates. That is a reality. That's something that we've been seeing, and it kind of motivates me to do what we're doing. So we want people to have the ability to protect themselves, and the statistics are there. You got to dig for them. You're not going to see it in the media. Obviously, Vegas is going to be protective of its image, so a lot of the crime that occurs doesn't actually get reported.
Oh, interesting.
But the statistics are there. You go to Metro's website, and you can see year after year what the crime statistics are and what they're doing, and so it's a real concern.
So because it's such a big tourist attraction, they want to keep it.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I have friends in Metro, and you get the real scoop on what's happening in places like the Strip in downtown, and quite frankly, it's scary. I worry about my wife when she goes out with her friends, and they go to different places on the Strip or downtown. It's like, be careful.
Is a lot of the crime from the tourists, or is it a lot of local or all over the place? Doesn't really.
I don't really know the demographic of those committing the crimes, whether they're locals, whether they're transient.
But if it happens on or near the strip, the big casinos probably want to do their best to cover it up.
Yeah.
Damn. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when is your next course for the beginner, the CCW class?
So
how often do you run that class?
We try to do them monthly. Really just depends on demand, but it usually is about once a month.
And it's an 8-hour course?
It's
like
an 8-hour
9 to 5
course.
Type of.
Yep.
Okay. Weekdays, weekends, both?
Generally Saturdays, sometimes Sundays. Try not to work on Sundays, but usually Saturdays. I do have a 9 to 5 as well, so unfortunately I am held to weekends for the time being. But December 9th we have a course, and then January 7th we have a course as well. And then our Responsibly Armed Citizens course, we have one December 16th, January 6th, and then March 30th. That's kind of my passion right now, is that course particularly, because like I said, that's giving people what I think is the minimum of what everybody should have prior to carrying a firearm concealed out in public.
Yeah. And these are at various ranges, whichever range you're working with at the time, or do you lock into a certain range for all these courses?
So right now my CCW courses are being held at Discount Firearms.
Okay.
They have class space available that I utilize, and then of course they have the range attached to the shop there. My Responsibly Armed Citizens course are held out at the Vegas Pro Gun Club in Boulder City, Nevada.
Oh, wow.
And that's an 8-hour course, all on the range though.
And that's, once you get CCW, take that one? Like, would be the progression, or
either or, but yeah, that's typically the progression we like to see. But if we can get people into that course prior to the CCW, that's great too, because they're just getting that information, ahead of time, and it's not a bad thing at all.
And you could take a CCW course without having owned a gun. Like, you don't need to bring a gun to class, kind of thing.
Yeah. In fact, I get several people that haven't purchased that firearm yet. And so I always have rentals there that those particular students can utilize. And really it becomes a good opportunity for me to help coach them through that process, because they're undecided, they're unsure. So we spark the conversation there at class, and then I follow up with them, and then, help them figure out what it is that they want and what they need and what's going to work for them. And then sometimes that leads to additional training. But if it doesn't, I help them get the firearm that fits them, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah. It's kind of a random question, but are there any like Hollywood, or like just movies in general, that accurately depict? Because I know, you got like John Wick, you got like The Matrix, and all the, like, is there one out there? Like, I'm thinking of the one, it's not really about like shooting, but more about like the arms. What's the one with Nicolas Cage, where he's an arms dealer? But like, I don't know. I'm wondering, is there anything out there that's like actual, like, oh yeah, that's spot on in your mind, or that comes to mind?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, Hollywood embellishes everything. So, let me see. No, but I will say, Keanu Reeves is the real deal.
Really?
Yeah. So there's
like, he does his own stunts?
Yeah, well, he's just a beast with the firearm.
Really?
So
Okay.
there's a very high profile range. Terran Tactical is the company that runs it, and they get a lot of celebrities that go through their facility for weapons training and whatnot prior to their movies or their shows. Keanu Reeves is the real deal.
I feel like if you did those, both Matrix and John Wick, and didn't know how to shoot a gun, like,
Nah.
that would be pretty embarrassing. Like,
Yeah.
He probably, in his mind, he's like, I should probably know how to do this in real life.
No, yeah, he's a savage. Like, I mean, if he were to enter into the competitive shooting world,
No kidding.
he would kill it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had a friend in high school that did that. That was like, he was a marksman. Like, he was a competitive shooter. Like,
Yeah, it used to be a thing in schools.
like, I mean, I don't think I think he did it like outside of school, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, like, you're running, you're doing an obstacle course while shooting targets, things like that. So yeah, I guess it just goes deep. It's a world that I'm not really familiar with, but I'm happy that I brought you on, to get somewhat familiar with it,
Yeah.
and then to hopefully maybe start a journey in a very safe and responsible way.
Yeah.
Real quick before we go, what say your website, your Facebook, Instagram, whatever links, feel free to plug it.
Yeah, so you can find us at www.civdefsolutions.com. IG is CivDef Solutions as well. Civil Defense Solutions on Facebook. You can find all of us there. I'm posting daily about our courses, so if there's any interest there, click the links, visit the website, and register. We do have discounts for veterans, first responders, security industry individuals. So, if any of those apply, let us know. There's discount codes for that. We like to take care of those people in that community. And yeah, that's it. And if I could say anything, it was just be responsible. To me, a armed society is a polite society, but there's a great level of responsibility that comes along with that. Like I said earlier, I am a constitutionalist. I don't believe that we should have a government that's infringing on our rights to bear arms, and historically that's always ended bad. But there is a level of responsibility that comes with that, just like any rights. And so, we need to be well trained. We need to be educated. But there's no greater value than being able to protect ourselves and our loved ones, and even extend that protection to our community as well. We can only do that when we're armed, and we're armed responsibly and educated. So,
well said. Thanks so much, Garik. Thanks
Absolutely.
for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for subscribing to Vegas Faces on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok under the name Garik Group. That's Gavri Group. Thanks, everybody. See you at the next episode.